Hey friends, this is probably I think this is our last week of new lessons. So I wanted to say hi in person and help you guys out, I hope, with these grouping symbols, okay? So last week we studied what order of operations is. And if you have your notes from last week, that would be great. We have our PEMDAS that we put in our notebooks, I hope. And I hope you've been having a good time with that. Okay? It's actually really fun. I hope you got a chance to play some games and things like that. So this week we are going to go another level because there are, and like I said in our last week's notes, there are other types of grouping symbols. So as you can see, there are parentheses, brackets, and braces. So whenever we see any kind of grouping symbol, we stop, drop, and solve. And what we're going to do is practice even more with that and get a little bit deeper into it. Okay. So our essential question, go ahead and go grab your materials, your workbook 7.5. I'm going to work on a little bit of all three of these pages, so you might want to take out all three. This will help you with your little quizzes assignment that I put in. Okay. So, but you really just need to know about this. These are the rules of math equations, guys. Solving and simplifying equations is so very important. So go grab your supplies and we'll see you in a minute. All right. So our essential question here, in what order must operations be simplified to find a solution when there are parentheses within brackets? Okay, so we're going to have both brackets and parentheses, two different types of grouping symbols. So these are parentheses. So go ahead and write this in this white space. These are parentheses. And these are brackets. Oops. Okay? So when you see either of these things, you're going to stop, drop, and solve what's inside, because when we talked about it last week. When something is in parentheses, it's stuck together. All right? That value is one value. Whatever's inside that, you could have like 5 plus 4 plus 2, all in parentheses, but that means something that belongs together. So that has to stay together. It's one value. Okay? So that's why we're going to be using these parentheses and brackets, because those things stick together. So mainly, I'm not going to focus as much on the word problem part as I am just how do we do this, okay? And I think that's really important, especially since this is our last week and a lot of people are catching up and just learning how to solve these problems. I think that's important. More so right now than just doing it. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn to the back of this page. We're going to just go ahead and go to the example, okay? And last week, what I basically said was, I want you to go ahead and look at your PEMDAS. I want you to figure out, what do you have first? What do you see? Okay, and then you're going to highlight what you're going to do first. What do you think you will do first? So let's look at this, and let's check out our PEMDAS. You could always write it to the side, which I highly recommend, so that it will remind you what you have to do first. Because remember, it is a rule. And if you don't follow these rules, you're most likely going to come up with a way different answer than you should. Okay, so the first thing we look at, I'm just ignoring the word problem. I'm really just looking at how do I solve this problem, and then we'll go back and see why they're stuck together. Okay, so do we have parentheses? Yes, we actually have two different kinds, don't we? Because we have, look, we have parentheses, two sets of them, but they are inside brackets. Okay, so whatever is on the outside, okay, so these parentheses are on the inside, values are on the inside of these larger brackets. Okay, when you see these parentheses or brackets, you're going to stop, drop, and solve what's on the inside. So we're looking at this whole part here. Okay, so you're ignoring this 4 times right now. Okay, so we're going to look at this whole entire section that's in brackets, this whole thing. But inside there, we also have things that are grouped. Okay, so we have parentheses inside. So we have to find these values just like we did. Like last week, we would have just seen it like that. Okay, this week, that means that all of this is combined to form a value. I'll explain that in a minute. Okay, so let's go ahead and work this part. Okay, so what is 6 minus 4? It's 2. Still going to keep this plus sign just like we did last week. You're going to pull everything down. that you had left over from that. Okay, so in order as well. And then you could go ahead and mark this since it's separate. 7 minus 3 is 4. Okay, so now we have this value, which is 2, plus this value, which is 4. So you're still in a grouping symbol. These are brackets, so you have to go ahead and solve that next. Okay, so this is what we will solve. Still not worrying about this 4 yet. It's outside the grouping symbol. And again, that's why I use typically, instead of the P, I use G for grouping symbols, only because it means all of them. Okay, so we solve this. 2 plus 4 is 6. So we're going to be multiplying 4 times 6. That's how you would solve that. Okay, so why are these values stuck together? Okay, so let's read this problem. It says John gets $6 for his weekly allowance and spends of it. His sister Tina gets $7 for her weekly allowance and spends $3 of it. Their mother's birthday is in 4 weeks. So if they save the same amount each week, how much money can they save together in that time to buy her a present? So they're still spending their money, but they do want to save some for their mom. Maybe it's for Mother's Day. Oh, no, it said birthday. Sorry. I just read that. Okay, again, I'm really big on strip diagrams. I love strip diagrams. I'm going to show you how you could diagram this out because it looks a little confusing. If you didn't have this laid out for you, you might, a lot of folks just kind of give up on that, but I don't want you to give up. Okay, so let's see what John does weekly. Okay, in 1 week. So we could say, let's set this up like this. Okay, here's John. Make a start bar. Here's Tina. And let's see what they do each week. Here's John's amount. Here's what he does. He gets $6, but he spends 4 of it. So 4 is going away. And he's going to do this. They're going to do this for 4 weeks. So do you see how this, if this represents 1 week, right? Then this represents another week. We're going to make 4. So it's every week he gets $6 and he spends $4. He gets $6 and then he spends 4. He gets $6 and spends 4. Do you see what that's doing right there? So we know that he's $2 each, or he's going to be able to save $2 each week. But we're trying to write an expression and simplify it. Okay, if you can create the expression from the word problem, that is awesome. That is half the battle. Okay, well, let's look at what Tina does. Tina might be older. She gets a little bit more money, so she gets $7 and spends 3 of it. So she's actually saving a little bit more money than John is. So he does this 4. She does this 4. So in this problem that they already laid out for you, can you see that they multiplied the total of both of these expressions? Okay, so can you see that we have 4 groups of each of these? We have 4 groups of 7 minus 3, and we're going to add that to this. So 4 groups of 6 minus 4. Okay, so as you can see, 6 minus 4 is 2. And 7 minus 3 is 4, and we're going to have 4 groups of that combined. We could just draw a picture of what they do in 1 week and say, okay, well, we have 6 minus 4, and that's what happens right here, okay? We have 6 minus 4, which is 2. We're going to add that to 7 minus 3, which is 4, okay? And that way, we can say, okay, it's 4 groups of that, and that's what we have in this picture. If you kind of think about how you can draw pictures and diagrams of what you're doing, you might be able to see these expressions just a little bit more. Okay, so we're going to spend $24. So we're able to save that much and spend that much for the month. Okay. Oh, yeah, here it says, what if only Tina saves money? Would this change the expression? Well, of course it would. I mean, words would change, right? But let's just practice. That's the biggest thing here. We need to practice how do you solve these correctly. So let's look at the share and show. And let's go ahead and write this down again. The more you write it down, the more you'll remember it. And remember, it's multiplication and division from left to right, whichever comes first. addition, subtraction from left to right, whichever comes first, because you may see a subtraction before you see addition, but it's from left to right. Okay, so don't forget that. Don't forget that. All right, so let's look at this very first one. Maybe kind of give you a hint on this one, but let's just look at it. Look at your checklist. That's what this is. Do we have parentheses or any type of grouping symbol? Yes, we have two types. We have both parentheses and we have brackets. So we're going to look at this entire part. We're going to forget all about this 12 right now. What we have to do is stop, drop, and solve what's inside these brackets. Now, inside the brackets are two sets of parentheses that are being added. Those values will be added. So we could go ahead and do, they've already solved this part. They said that 15 minus 5 is 10, which is true. Bring down this addition sign in the exact same order that it was there, which they did. And then 9 minus 3 is 6, so we'll fill that in. Again, we still have to solve what's in these brackets because they're like parentheses. As long as they're inside those brackets, those are grouping symbols. That means that value is stuck together. It is one value. They've just written it a little bit differently. There was a scenario, a situation that had them write it as this set, just like in the example we just did. So 10 plus 6 is 16. So you would simplify it to add 12 and 16, which is 28. Now, if you needed to stack those up in proper place value, you can certainly add. Okay. Let's look at this next one. Remember, you always pause the video, give it a shot first, and then see if your answer matches mine. And you can always go back and see what is already here, because I want you to be looking at good examples. Parentheses, very important. We see parentheses and we see brackets. We see two types again, two levels of grouping symbols. So we're going to highlight all of this, and we're going to ignore the 5 times part for right now. So you could solve, you need to solve this first. We're going from left to right. So 26 minus 4 is 22. And what is 4 plus 6? It is 10. We're going to leave the subtraction symbol right where it belongs. Leave it there. And I want you to go ahead and rewrite, because we have not simplified the entire portion of what's inside the bracket. So you need to leave the brackets there. Make sure you're keeping that value together. So 22 minus 10, have to solve. Oh, just go ahead and always rewrite the entire thing. You don't want to end up forgetting that. A lot of people do that. So we have to still solve what's inside the brackets first. So 22 minus 10, again, please, folks, if you need to write it, write it. I'd rather you be showing a little bit extra work and getting a good answer. So 2 minus 0 is 2, 2 minus 1 is 1. So this value is 12. I'm going to multiply that times 5. And 5 times 12 is 16. Awesome. Why don't y'all pause that video and give this a shot? I know you can do it. And we're back. Okay. So let's check these brackets. Brackets. Okay, so again, we have is inside the bracket. So you're going to want to look at this one first. 18 minus 10, you're right, is 8. And then we have 8 minus 6, which is 2. And we're going to leave this in the brackets because we have not completely simplified this that's in the brackets. We're going to keep this 36 divided by. Everything has to stay in the exact same order that it was in before, because like addition and addition and multiplication have commutative property. You can flip-flop the numbers. You can't do that with everything, okay? Only addition and subtraction. So I keep saying that. Only in addition and multiplication do you have commutative property. You cannot switch the order with division and subtraction. And look what we have. We have division and subtraction here. So make sure everything stays in the same order always. Just make that a fact. Okay, so we have to simplify this. 8 minus 2 is 6. And 36 divided by 6 is 6. Okay. Good job. How you feeling? I hope you're feeling good. It's so bad. Fun. It's almost like a little mystery. Okay. Actually, you know what? We can do these word problems. You can try these later. I really just want y'all solving these problems. Okay, so go ahead and so you have page 319. We're going to work some of these together. I really want to work through at least half of these so that you really get the hang of it. Okay, so let's look at number one. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Okay, so again, we have, you can always write PEMDAS. Okay. Man, all over the place. I just ate dinner. I'm full. I think it's steak has gotten in my head. Okay. Do we have parentheses? Yes. We also have brackets. So if you see, again, if you see those grouping symbols, you stop, drop, and solve. So we're only looking at what's inside this entire, everything that's between my fingertips is inside brackets, and those are grouping symbols that you need to pay attention to. Okay, so if you did 14, if you just started off and ignored the parentheses and you said 14 plus 2 times 5 plus 3 times 8, you're going to wind up with a completely wrong answer. So let's make sure and look at these parentheses a bit. So we have two parts. Plus, and then 3 times 8 is 24. So we have 10 plus 24. That's going to be simplified first before we add 14 to anything. So 10 plus 24 is 34. And we're going to add 14 to it. So that would be 8. Okay, let's look at number 2. Highlight what's in the brackets. You do see brackets. All of that mixed together as one value. We're multiplying 5 times every single thing that's inside that value, or inside those brackets. So be really careful when you're solving this, because you don't want to start completely from left to right, because you can't. This part we ignore until the very, very end. 5 times this value is going to be the very last step that you do. So this is 10, and this value is 7. So that is 3, right? 10 minus 7 is 3. So remember, we're working with addition and subtraction, so be careful to pay attention to the sign. And then this is 5 times. Okay. I hope you're getting the hang of it. I hope you're getting the hang of it. Okay, let's look at number 3. I want you to pause the video, give it a shot, see if you come up with the same answer. Just remember your rules, all right? So write them down, PEMDAS. Oh, do it again. Oh, well. Okay, so again, pause the video, work it out. Check your answer with me. All right. So yeah, this whole entire part in these brackets represents one single value. They just wrote it that way because there was a situation that made this happen, right? It could be, I got $18 a week and I spent 9 of it, or however long or something like that. Anyway, $13 a week and spent $12 each week. So that's $1 left. How much more money did this person make than this person? Or I don't know. There's just so many reasons we could think of. And then if that's the amount of money, we could have divided 40 by that. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of what this could be about. Anyway, let's solve it. We have 18 minus 9, which is 9. 13 minus 12, which is 1. 9 minus 1 is 8. Remember, this belongs in the bracket still. 9 minus 1. So 40 divided by 8 is 5. Awesome, right? I bet you got 5. I'd be willing to bet money that you got 5. Okay, let's try this one again. Pause the video and come back and check your work. I'm just going to do a couple more. I'm going to try to make this a little shorter. Okay, we do have parentheses. You need to make sure you solve what's in the parentheses, okay, before you do anything else, but those are in brackets. So all of that, every single thing inside all of those brackets has to be solved before you even touch that divided by 3, right? Yes. So 15 plus 5 is 20. 5 times 2. Remember, your signs are changing, so you really have to be very careful looking at your problem. So 5 times 2 is 10. And this all belongs in bracket 2. We don't have a whole lot of room. We can simplify it above and say, okay, 20 plus 10 is 30. And we're going to divide that by 3. And we all know 30 divided by 3 is 10. So 10 should be answer. All right, let's just do 2 more and then we're done. We don't need it. I just really want y'all to be able to solve these. All right, so you have, see now these, they're all different. It really just depends on the scenario, what you have first. So here they could have put the 4 times in front of this whole piece, because remember, if this is in brackets, all of this, we could pick this up and move it if it's multiplication. Could we do that with division? No, because remember, this stands for one single value. All right, this is one value. Everything inside these brackets is one value. So with multiplication, you can switch factors, right? So if everything inside that bracket represents one value, that's like saying 5 times 4, right? And you could switch that around. That would be no problem at all. You could totally do that. So let's go ahead and subtract this. So 21 minus 13. Well, if we look at this one, 11 minus 3 is 8, isn't it? So 21 minus 13 is 8. You can count forward to 13, minus 21. Yeah, you can also just do good. And then what is this? 32 minus 24. And remember, guys, you don't have to do mental math on this. You really don't. You could go ahead and stack it up if you weren't sure. 32 minus 24. Well, we know that 34 minus 24 would be 10. So this is 2 short of 34. So we know it's going to be 8. But let's 6 minus 4, you can't do that as far as 12 minus 4, which is 8. Okay, so there you go, 8 plus 2. So put that in. Okay, 6 times 4. So that would be 16 times 4. And again, you don't know your 16s. I personally don't know my 16s, so I'm just going to write it down. Is that okay to do? Absolutely. You've got to write things down. I want you to always do your work, please. 24, and then 4 plus 2. Okay. All right, friends, let's do one of these other ones. Go down to this really last one. Look at that. We got a lot going on here. Okay. We got a lot going on. I love it. Okay, so we have parentheses, brackets in 2 different places. So let's just always go. We have brackets on the left. We have brackets on the right. So let's always just go from left to right. That'll get you in the habit. In this case, it doesn't matter which bracket set you work on first. This one or this one, but you still have to follow the rules inside the bracket. So I'm just going to start with this one. I'm going to ignore this completely. I'll go ahead and get this side simplified, and then we'll do the other side. So we do see parentheses inside the bracket, so we have to solve this part first. 2 times 6 is 12. We're going to add that to 3, and that stays in brackets, and we'll just keep it. Okay, you could go ahead and write this side. And we don't even have to do that one yet. Okay, you could work it at the same time. You could say, okay, well, 7 times 3 is 21, and you can do it however you want to, as long as you're following the rules inside those brackets. I'm just for now telling you to go ahead and simplify one part of it first. It is up to you. You come out with the same answer if you follow the rules and keep everything in the same exact order. You have to. Okay, so 12 plus 3 is 15. So we have this side simplified down to one numeral, which is great. and we're going to add that to what's in this value. So let's go ahead and start focusing on this. So the first part we're going to solve here is 7 times 3, which is 21, because these are parentheses inside this bracket, or inside these brackets. 21 and 35 minus 21. Well, let's go ahead and just line this up, friends. Do that. I want you to just start guessing, getting crazy. So if we have 15 plus 14, we almost simplified all of this. No problemo. I know you can do this. 15 plus 14 is 29. Folks, I know we're going to miss you guys. This is my only video. I just want y'all to make sure you're catching up and finishing everything. Okay, so we love y'all, care about y'all, and hope that you're happy, healthy, safe, and we'll hopefully see you very soon. Love y'all.